Hello friends, and welcome to Listening to the Verde, a series brought to you by Friends of the Verde River. Friends of the Verde River works with people like you for a healthy, flowing Verde River system. This program will inspire, engage, and inform you about everything that makes the Verde healthy. That includes the water, the land, and our people. I'm Nancy Steele, Executive Director of Friends of the Verde River, and I'm here today with Sedona Mayor Sandy Moriarty, Camp Verde Mayor Dee Jenkins, and Clarkdale Mayor Robyn Prud'homme-Bauer. We're here today to discuss some of the cities in our Verde Valley. Welcome and thanks for joining us. And mayors, I'm so happy you're here to talk with us all. We're going to get started right away. I'm going to tell our viewers a little bit about each one of you, and then when I'm done you can add anything I've missed, and then we'll go on with some questions. So some facts about our illustrious guests here today. Mayor Moriarty was instrumental in the incorporation of Sedona, and she was appointed to the first city council. Now, she had moved to Sedona in 1972, before it was even a city. She is by trade an independent accountant, having worked in the finance industry, and she's been a mayor of Sedona since 2014 and was re-elected in the last election in 2020. Mayor Jenkins was raised on a dairy farm in Chester County, Pennsylvania, and moved to Camp Verde in 1997. She's recently retired from Quintus, which is its headquarters is in Camp Verde, and she was their financial analyst and general manager, although she had a lot of other roles in her career, and she remains as chairman of the board. And she was elected for the first time to Camp Verde as their mayor, not as she'd been on city council previously, in 2020. Mayor Prud'homme-Bauer moved to Clarkdale also in 1997. And she owns the family business Alcora Marble. She's a longtime member of the League of Women Voters and has a lot of volunteer experience under her belt. And she was also elected mayor for the first time in 2020. So again, welcome. And
thank you. Thank you.
One thing I noticed in reading all of your bios is that you're all business people. Of course, you're all women too, although that has nothing to do with anything, except that I think women often take the initiative and get things done. It's just my personal bias. But let's talk to us about the experience of being a mayor. And we had a little conversation beforehand on whether having a financial background is a requirement or a help in being a mayor of a small city here. So who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go ahead and go first. Is it a requirement? No, but it's helpful to have some understanding of budgets and how money flows in government, which is not the same as it flows necessarily in your household. It is a learning curve. But understanding numbers and where our dollars are going, the taxpayer dollars are going, is really important.
I'll just say that while it isn't a requirement to have a business background, but it does definitely help. But it is a common misconception that you can run government like a business. Actually, you can't run government like a business. The rules are different. And there are many rules in government about what you can and can't do, what you can and can't spend money on. Every year our budget is limited. Once you set your tentative budget, you can't go above that for the year, no matter how much money you have or don't have.
Correct.
So there are some key differences in running government from running a business.
So you can move money around, but you can't go over that.
Correct. That's correct.
That's
yeah.
correct.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah. No, most people aren't aware of it.
No, most people aren't aware of that at all. It is a learning curve for those who are new to council, like I was, even though I had been through budget sessions and stuff in our town. Once you get into it, then you really start understanding the differences, where you have money that is restricted, which happens with what we in our water and wastewater, because those are basically user fees that are collected. So those monies have to stay there. It's not, it can have a lot of money there, and we might not have money over in the library. We can't transfer those to. But Sandy is right. We're limited by the budgets that we set. We cannot go over them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll echo what they say as well. I draw on my management experience at Quintus, managing people, managing a business, building forecasts, budgets. It's certainly been a benefit to have that background behind me. And being a financial analyst and able to read financial reports, I'm able to converse one-to-one with the financial folks as well as the manager. I believe it's been really, really helpful, and has kind of smoothed out my learning curve on council because I came in with those skills.
Mm-hmm. And you've been on the council for how many years before you were elected?
4 years on council, and then it'll be 1 year already as mayor, and we have 1 year to go.
Oh,
yes.
Wow, so you're already kind of getting ready for the next election.
Not me.
No?
No, yes. Ours is a 4-year term.
4 years.
Oh, you have 4 years.
I have 3 more years.
So
Yes,
I
it
think
varies.
Dee and I are 2 years.
2 years.
It does vary.
Yeah,
Our
it
council
does.
members all have 4-year terms. In Sedona, I think that's fairly common.
Yes,
among
our council is 4
but
years
mayor's
as well, but
terms
mayor's
do
2.
vary
Mm-hmm.
between 2 to 4 years.
Yeah.
It's never more than that. It's never
Yeah,
less than
right.
that, but 2 to 4 years. And in some cases in cities in Arizona, their election cycle is different.
Yes.
The state put us all on the standard state election cycle a couple of years ago. Before that, we had our elections in March and May, primary in March, election in May. Now we're all on the standard primary and general election cycle. But generally in cities, we get elected at the primary. And we'll see, it depends on how many people run.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's complicated.
So I just have one of those questions that's been bugging me for a while. What's the difference between a town and a city?
It's in statute.
It's in
and it's based on
statute.
population.
Population.
Okay.
That's
So 1,500, I think, is the difference between town and city. You still have the option, I believe. We did become a city when we incorporated. We were over 1,500, but we could have incorporated and called ourselves a town. But there are a little bit of extra responsibility on a city.
I was going to say, what's the practical difference
But
besides
generally,
the name?
really, generally, I think this a lot because there's some very small towns in Arizona. I think the smallest there's smaller than Jerome, believe it or not. Like Winkleman or something has
Winkleman, I think,
353
yes.
people. So, but a small town like that has the same major obligations that any city does. You have to have a police department, you have to have a magistrate, and you have to have a city clerk. And of course, we all have more departments than that, most of us. But Jerome, very often it's dual duty between in roles. You know, so and we do rely. I will say, Arizona is also a strong manager, weak mayor state, which means our professional staff runs the city. That is not our job. Our job is to make policy.
Right.
And lots of people don't really understand
That is absolutely
So we're
correct.
constantly being, people think that we run the city when we don't.
No.
But you set the policy.
We set the policy.
Set the policy, that's correct. And I don't even have an office in town hall. My office is in my office at my house. And I can use the office space, but I don't have an official office in town hall. But I do meet with our town manager every week to go over what's happened the week before, or what's on our plate ahead of us. So I'm in constant contact with our town manager anytime we want to talk. That's not hard.
How's Camp Verde's growing? It's a happening place. Talk a little bit about the challenges of being a mayor in a growing city like that.
Oh my. Well, we have so many projects going on, and with the influx of money, as we all have seen this year from the federal government, we have working on projects and plans that we really couldn't even have discussed a few years ago. We knew that they needed to be done. So we're very busy. Population-wise, we're growing. Project-wise, we're going to be able to do a lot of things. We're doing quite a bit of hiring at the upper level of staff to help us get through these projects. So we're really busy, and it is a challenge. It's limited resources and typically really limited funds. We're still always going to have limited funds, but we have more than usual in order to get like infrastructure taken care of this year and some other CIP projects. So that part's really exciting, and that has got entire staff really excited about what's going to be happening within the next year as far as getting some projects done within Camp Verde and getting with the federal government and state loosening up, where we were waiting on some funding from them. As you know, we've got the matching funds for the sports complex that had been on hold for well over a year, and that's a major multi-million-dollar project. So we're just on a path. We're so happy to be able to do this and answer to what the community needs and wants and deserves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to shift the discussion to talking about the river and all the things that go along with being river cities. I like to think of you all as captains of river cities. And how that has been influential in the formation of the city, and how you think, when you're thinking about policies and when you're thinking about running your cities, how has that influenced the growth of the city and the kinds of people? This is, I know, a big topic, but we may as well get started talking about it now. So, and I think also everyone, if they don't know, Camp Verde has, I don't know if it's now the newest, but certainly one of the most recent important bird areas designated in Arizona was in Camp Verde along the river. And so that brings in tourists that maybe wouldn't have thought to come to Camp Verde before. So maybe Mayor Jenkins, you can start and talk a little bit about that.
Wow. We're pleased to have 18 miles of the Verde River within our town limits. I don't know specifically what you want to talk about other than the Verde River. People live there because of the Verde River. We have a very significant agricultural community. We're very proud of that. They do what they can to limit the impact that they have on the river through irrigation and crop growing. They're very proactive in working towards sustaining the river. We have many trail systems. We have canoe races at the White's Bridge each year. We're working on some of the newer parks that have river access and improving them so that we have parking lots and it's safer for folks to park and be able to enjoy the river. I watched last year's broadcast and I'm echoing what John Huey and what Tim Alinsky said, and that is, if you love the river, you'll take care of it. So we welcome people to enjoy the river, to love the river, and help us take care of it.
Well, that's wonderful. And the trails are a direct part of that also, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about efforts that Camp Verde has made to reduce, say, homeless encampments and dumping and trash along the river, and really make it an amenity for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We work with the dumping. I can't say enough about our district supervisor, James Gregory. We work with him to open up the dump site in Camp Verde.
Yeah.
So that we're dumping where it's supposed to be dumped and not in the forest.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. It's time for a break, and so we'll be right back in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this episode of Listening to the Verde. We are here with 3 mayors of our Verde Valley cities, Mayor D. Jenkins with Camp Verde, Mayor Robyn Prud'homme-Bauer with Clarkdale, and Mayor Moriarty with Sedona. And we were just getting into talking about what it means to be mayors of cities that have a river running through it. And we're having a good discussion during the commercial break. So Mayor Prud'homme-Bauer, maybe you'd like to kick this off.
Well, we have, Verde River at Clarkdale, which was a project started several years ago to really educate and highlight the river for all of our residents in Clarkdale and others who come to visit Clarkdale. That project ended up in 2 river access points that are organized so that it's easy getting on and off of the river on both of those. And I think that's what Camp Verde is looking at doing in their part of the river also. It's a big part of what we are. It's our history. That was the food basket for the Verde Valley before it was called the Verde Valley, because a lot of agriculture was grown along the river in the river areas. So it's an important part of our spirit of identifying us, and it's beginning to be somewhat of an economic influence within our region as we see more outfitters coming to town and people coming to enjoy the river. I think one of the cautionary tales of the river has been the pandemic, and we were talking about that a little bit, is the amount of people who are coming to use not just the river but the lands around the river, both national and state parks, national forests and state park areas, and the increased amount of rubbish and debris we've been seeing for those who are visiting. They haven't always been as nice as we would like them to be along the river, I think, and in our lands that abut the river. So I know that in the Sedona area this has been a big issue, but it's an issue for all of us along the river, is the taking care of what we have.
Yeah, and you were also subject to Clarkdale was also subject to one of those huge meetups, right? That there were like 5,000 people that signed up.
That was
they didn't
rumored.
All come. Oh,
they did not all come. We didn't get hardly any at all. So it was more social media hype than anything else. But our facilities can't handle that. Numbers, and even with the increase of people wanting to get outdoors and do things as the pandemic has changed, it has really had us think a lot about how we handle the number of people who want to come and visit this wonderful river that flows through our town. And some of our facilities will probably have to change or expand, or we have to operate differently to handle the numbers who want to come and enjoy this area.
No, that's a big challenge.
Huge challenge, yeah.
And then,
because that drives your budget.
Yeah.
It drives your resources. Yeah. And your communities have to be committed to, this is where we want to be, and this is part of what we want to do, and that is a strong part of Clarkdale. So we have to look at that all the time.
Yeah, and I think there's still a growth in the knowledge of the Verde River. I think there's still a lot of people who don't know about it, although Facebook is kind of ending its secretiveness. But then there's Sedona with the world famous Oak Creek.
Yes.
Right. Who doesn't know about the Red Rocks and Oak Creek and its beauty? So
I am a creek captain, not a river captain.
There you go. Well,
there you go.
And in Sedona, because we are in 2 counties, Coconino County and Yavapai, and in the city, the creek is in Coconino County. It is not in Yavapai County. It goes into Yavapai County as it passes through Sedona out to the village of Oak Creek, which is another kind of a misnomer, because people hear that, they think the village of Oak Creek, so the name of the village there is Oak Creek.
Correct.
And yet nobody in Sedona calls it Oak Creek. everybody calls it the VOC, Village of Oak Creek. And so but you'll hear the Phoenix commentators call it, oh, out in Oak Creek. And I always think, well, Oak Creek is a creek. It's not a city. Or a town or a village. So there's some confusion. Part of the problem in the city of Sedona, there's no real access to the creek, public access, easy public access. At the hotels some of the hotels are on it, they have access. Private property has access. And one of these days, we've talked about it ever since we've been incorporated, establishing some kind of public creek access, but it's very limited in Sedona if you're not either at a hotel that's on it or some kind of lodging facility. And so we are a city that is in the middle of national forest. Many people think that Sedona should have been a national park, but it's too late for that now. We can't become a national park. And so it is difficult. We're half of our land in Sedona, within the boundaries, is on national forest land. So that's a challenge. And during the pandemic, what we found was we all thought, I think, that nobody would come during the pandemic. And during the official shutdown, that was true. People did not come up. But once the shutdown was over, it was, oh goodness, here they come. And they all came. We thought we would lose revenue during the pandemic. Instead, we didn't lose revenue and probably gained some revenue. So we budgeted low and had way more than we expected. And because Sedona is obviously a tourist-driven community, that's our main economic engine. Always will be, whether we like it or not, frankly. And so that's what happened. They wanted to get out of the dense cities and come up to where they could get in the outdoors, because everybody heard, oh, it's spreading in density. That's where it's spreading. So if we can come up to the national forest and camp out there on the forest land, which mostly where the camping was taking place is outside city limits.
Yes.
But of course we get blamed for all of it because you brought all those tourists here. And actually we didn't, certainly not the campers, but that's what happened is people, and it's still happening.
Yes,
they're out there, they're recreating not only in Jeeps, but in off-road vehicles of various types. And I was really happy to hear on 60 Minutes the other night that OHVs are going to become electric vehicles. They're starting to make electric OHVs. At least they're quiet. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean they can't do donuts and other destructive driving techniques. And every time I see a commercial on TV of some truck doing donuts, I just think, oh, please don't encourage that, because it is destroying the land. And as we're in a drought situation, have been chronic drought for several years, serious drought all over the state. And Arizona is a desert. Even the high country is a desert. So we haven't had the rainfall we normally had. When I moved here in '72, we used to get rain almost every afternoon in the summer. That doesn't happen anymore. And now we're getting it kind of in downpours rather than just gentle rains that help to distribute the water into the Verde, as a matter of fact. And in addition to that, we have a wastewater treatment plant, which is, as Robyn explained, it's an enterprise fund. So the sewer fees are supposed to pay for everything. They don't. We have to subsidize it, but we can't use that money for anything else. That's limited to that. So our general budget is outside of that, and yet it's more than half of it probably, or at least half of it goes to the wastewater part. So we have to dispose of that wastewater somewhere, and we have injection wells, but we've had issues with the injection wells, and we're now working with the Yavapai Apache Nation to get it down to the Verde in a big pipeline. So that will be, we're still hoping to accomplish that. We're still working with them on that. And I think we all know that the Yavapai Nation believes that water is life, which of course it is, and it's critical to all of us, and they believe in sharing. But there's been water rights battles for years in the state. Ever since I arrived here, I heard about it. And in the beginning, cities would go out and annex land to get water rights. So that's kind of come to an end here, but it's a touchy issue, and how we develop our water rights, and in the rural areas, in the metropolitan areas, they have what's called AMAs, active management areas for water, but out here we don't have it. So
No.
while surface water rights are well defined, groundwater rights are not.
This
And
is
it's a
like the real
problem.
Wild West
Yes,
of water
it
out
is.
here,
Right.
and it's hard because I think the best thing that we could do, I think, is we have to really work really hard together to manage and understand and respect our water, and figure out how we're going to live within what water is here. And
And it's really more about the groundwater than
it's
the
more
surface
about
water,
the
because
groundwater
people can
and
go drill a
surface
well
water, even though there
anywhere.
is a connection between the two. We won't go into that debate. But when we see the river getting low or Oak Creek getting
Yes.
low, remember Oak Creek is a tributary to
Right.
the Verde
Yes, it
River,
is.
so it's all connected. There's a concern. What's happening? Is it climate change?
Yes.
Is it pumping upstream that is affecting the headwaters of this river that is a wild and scenic river that runs through our valley? I think
Right.
that's a ongoing discussion, but I believe the more that we work together collaboratively and understand water, uses of water.
Yeah.
She's got her finger
Well,
up.
and we've just got one more minute, and I want to let Mayor Jenkins wrap us up here on your
I just wanna
hopes
say-
and your thoughts about the river.
Yeah, Camp
and-
Verde, we absolutely support programs and policies that's going to safeguard the river, the health of the river. And it's not just the flow of the river, but the health of the river, the animals, the birds. And the one thing, not the one thing, but one of the things that Camp Verde is doing is our sewer treatment plant and extending our sewer out to 60. We believe that we want to reduce the number of septic tanks. If we can get that water in a pipeline, we have the capability of producing A+ water, and that's what will water our
Correct.
our sports complex, which means we're not pumping water. That's the right thing to do.
It is.
And that's
Absolutely.
a major project that we're working on now, and we work in conjunction with our wonderful neighbors, the Yavapai Apache Nation, whose water rights trump everybody else's.
Yes.
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 And luckily they're willing to share.
And they are absolutely great to work with. They're a great partner in the
Yes.
entire Verde Valley.
Absolutely.
As all of us, we find ways of working together
Yes.
that benefit all of us, and do the right thing
Right.
for the river.
And we
always.
do get to talk with each other every other week. So all of
Yes.
us are on a virtual meeting every other week, just raising issues and being able to talk about what's going on.
Yes.
And that's been great. So
Yes.
we do work well together that way.
Music to my ears. I love how when we get the mayors together, we end up talking about sewer systems. I just love that. But it's so important, and
It is.
people don't understand how
Absolutely.
important that is.
Oh yes, we
That-
have to get people
yeah.
off septic.
It's
And-
such a positive for the Verde River to use that
Yes.
sewer system and reuse, replenish that water back into the
That's
into
great.
the Mother Nature.
Great. Thank you so much. And I want to thank you all for listening to this episode of Listening to the Verde. For more episodes and to learn more about the Verde River watershed, please visit our website, verderiver.org/listening. Thank you all.
Listening to the Verde is brought to you by Friends of the Verde River. Please visit verderiver.org/listening for more videos and resources.